Hi, Self-Awareness Whose Truth. I am your host, Rose, and I have another very special guest today that's going to blow your mind. And she's a certified herbalist, and she's going to introduce herself.
Greetings to everyone, and I thank you, and I'm so excited to be here with Rose, Self-Awareness. My name is Zakiya Madian. I am a certified herbalist. I have been teaching around the country for over 30 years, and it is a field that I believe we all need, because we were each created with the ability and the power to heal thyself, but we don't know that. And the culture that we live in doesn't teach it, propagate it, support it, or want it, because if we become independently healthy, we won't need the AMA, we won't need to do co-pays at the doctor's office, the drugstores. But I think it's inherent upon us to take the responsibility to learn and teach. If you have the ability, it's your responsibility to teach. If you have the knowledge, it's your ability to practice, because a lot of us have a lot of knowledge. We have a lot of books, but a lot of us don't read the books. Those of us who read the books don't practice. So what I do is I teach as an herbalist people to learn how to heal themselves, how to eat right and live right, because 90% of all our ailments comes from what we put in our mouth. Our diet, what we drink, has a source, and it generates illness. So what we're going to talk about today in part is how to stop that, how to have optimum health, and it's not about diet fads. It's about what you really already know, but you just choose not to practice.
Oh, okay, because I met you last year, right?
Yes, yes.
And you did a presentation on herbalist that blew me away, because I took a class years ago in the 90s. Her name was Little Flower. She was excellent. But when I heard you, you just took it to a whole nother level. And I just felt the audience need to hear your perspective, point of view, because everybody has a point of view.
Yes, yes.
And
so what you're referring to is what I do basically is I teach a natural level of healing that is so in our face we can't see it. Because I teach healing with the elements, and the elements are that which surrounds us: ether, air, fire, water, and earth. It's elements we're all familiar with. And most of us have heard the term, as it is above, so it is below. But very few of us know what it means.
Thank you.
And even though we can say the words, it means that the elements that are in the universe is inside the body, but that's where it stops. And so what I do in my herb course is I teach us what that means. And I teach us what the nature of water is. If you understand the nature of the elements, if you understand the nature of ether, which is an element of spaciousness. It is the space that we live in, ethereal. It's the space. But it's not the space that we breathe, because that's air. Oh. That's a different element. That's a different state of the same element. So we go from ether, which is ethereal, which is just spaciousness, to air now. Air, it moves. It has an element of oxygen. It allows us to get life from it. We don't get life from ether, we get life from air.
From the air.
So it's a different state of the same element.
Okay.
From air we go to water, and from water we go to wood, wood we go to earth, earth we go to metal. So if you think about it, each element is the source of the following element.
Okay.
So we went from ether, as it moves becomes air.
Air.
Air, as it moves faster, it heats and generates electricity and energy and thought, and becomes fire, because it then generates fire.
Wow.
You take the power of the fire and it can precipitate moisture into water. And if you look at the earth, all of the elements actually come out of the earth. So from the earth, you have your water. And more solid state of water, you have your metal, and your ore is in the earth. So that each element generates the next element. But each individual element has a job in the body. Your ether and your air, if you think about ether and air, both an element of the movement of the universe, energy, represents the spaces in our body through which things travel, your veins and your arteries.
Wow.
Your cavities, the cavities is a space. Your thoracic cavity is a space where your lungs and your heart is. So it's a space. Your nasal cavity is a space through which you breathe. Your eye sockets is a space where your eyeballs sit. So as ether and air is a space, it relates to the spaces in the body. And so when you look at different things that manifest as illness and disease, and many times you'll go before a doctor and the doctor has no idea what's wrong with you, what to tell you. When I teach the elements, the purpose is so that you can understand the element's role in the universe, how it translates into a role in our body. And when you see something out of balance, you'll know how to backstep and know where it comes from.
Wow.
It's the same. Now that particular element that I described and its nature is in Ayurveda. Ayurveda is an East Indian science of self-healing. And it is based in the East Indian culture. And it takes the 5 elements, ether, air, fire, water, and earth, and it converts it into healing properties that we can understand. And in one of my handouts from my course, I discuss the ethereal element as it begins to move and it becomes air, which is ether in action. And then it moves, as it moves faster, the fire element is manifested. And through the element of fire, certain ethereal elements dissolve and liquefy, manifesting as the water element. The water element solidifies the molecules of the earth. In this way, the ether manifested into the 4 elements of air, fire, water, and earth. So it's a transition of the elements. And in the body, the same types of things happen. And then what I do, I move to another system, because what happens is that's the East Indian system of science and healing.
Okay.
Another culture that I study is the Chinese 5 elements. Now the Chinese 5 elements are a little different. It's water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. And when I first started studying, I studied around the country. I studied first at with the Montego Bay, Jamaica, Jamaican doctor, and his specialty was cancer and women's herbs. And I studied in New York under Martin Ravitsky. Then I studied at Great Barrington, Massachusetts at the Center of the Light. And I traveled and studied because when I first started studying Western herbs, there was no spirituality. There was no connection to a Godhead, to a belief system. There was no connection to the universe and the cycles of nature. It was just herbs, what they do, where they grow, how they grow. And I went to study, and I continued to study. I found out all of the other cultures had a divine connection.
Wow.
It was a connection to some God, some creator. It was a connection to the cycles of the universe. And then I realized how much I didn't know. And so I continued to study, and what I found is that every other culture has a connection to the universe and the cycles. And when you understand that, you can better understand your body, because every aspect of existence is connected to the cycles of the universe. I mean, you can't have a day without the night. You can't have a man without a woman. You cannot have up without down. And that's really where yin and yang comes from. It's not about black and white, man and woman, left and right, up and down, good and bad. It's not simply opposites. It is. You can't have a left until there is some point at which you have a right. You can't have a front until there is some point at which there is a back. You cannot have an up until there is some point at which there is the creation of a down. And you cannot have a male unless there is some point at which there is a female. So it's not about opposites so much as it is about the need of one to exist with and for the other.
Okay.
And one cannot exist without the other. So it is that relationship that I teach in the nature and the understanding of the elements to help us understand the body. A good example is in the Chinese 5 element system, we talk about the mother-child relationship of each of the elements. So I gave you a little example in Ayurveda, the science of self-healing, from that point of view. In the Chinese system, each element, water, wood, fire, earth, and metal, each represent 2 organs in the body. In the water element, connected to the water element, common sense, kidneys, and bladder. The wood element, liver, gallbladder. The fire element, heart and small intestines. The earth element, the spleen and the stomach. The metal element, the lungs and the large colons. Now, having said that, people say, oh, that makes sense. And it does make sense, but we were never taught that. Taking it a step further, in each element has connected to it an emotion, a sound, a direction, a fluid, a body tissue. It has facets of each element that can teach you about your body. So with the water, and it's going to make so much sense when I finish. The water element, if you think about it, the organs of the kidneys and the bladder, what is the organ's shape? The kidney. What is its shape like? It's shaped just like the ear. The emotion or the sound connected to the water element is hearing and ear. A lot of times people have balance issues or ear aches. It represents an imbalance in the water element. The emotion connected to the water element is fear. And if you think about it, a lot of times when you are so afraid, you either have to pee or you have to defecate. That's the connection. Wow. Fear is connected to the water element. And that's why sometimes we get so afraid we have to release water. And sometimes when people near death, they defecate because it's all connected to fear. Wow. The colors of the water element are blue and black. And so how you begin to learn how to identify the symptoms with the element is some people hate blue. They don't wear blue, they don't like blue. Some people love blue. They wear mostly blue. Whether you hate it or you like it, it gives you an indication of where in the balance your water element is. It doesn't mean, and if you hate black, it doesn't mean you have a kidney disease. It doesn't mean you have a disease. It means the energy is a little bit off balance. Because all of the systems I teach are based from we were born perfect. And we were. Thank you. If some of y'all don't know it, we were born perfect. Say it again. If some of you do not know it, we were born perfect. And if I remember in the class you were in, I had spoke to some of them and I asked them who believe they are God. Am I right? Did I remember that? I remember. And a few people didn't believe they were God. Thank you. But I asked the question, if you have a child, is the child you? Is the child your husband? Can the child not be you? And I think all religions teach their followers that they were made in the image of their God. Thank you. Whoever they are or whatever you believe. And if you are indeed created by your God, then you are God-like. Thank you. Now, I can't create a moon or a sun, but I could do a whole lot of things because I was created in the image of God. So we are all gods. We are little gods. Thank you. And that goes back to the whole thing and understanding the organs, the nature. And so what happens, so let's take wood. Let's take the wood element is the liver and the gallbladder. The nature of wood is growth. The color is green. Health, spirituality, new seasons, new thoughts, new ideas. Springtime is the season of the wood element. The liver happens to be the organ of detoxification in the body. It is responsible for detoxing all the madness we put in our body. Mental, physical, and spiritual. It goes and is filtered through through the liver. So sometimes and the emotion, now we said the emotion for the wood element was fear. The emotion for the wood element is anger.